if I'm right.
Seeing as it's the start of a brand new year, I figured why not review all of Cartoon Network's movies? I mean, I have the time, and I'm not one to brag, but my sanity has never been so well, so I guess it should be pretty easy. But mind you, I've got 3 rules. First, no live-action movies. Those are for their own video. Secondly, I won't be reviewing them all at once, as, well, I'm not that crazy. So I'll be splitting them into 4 easy-to-digest parts. And finally, I made a poll and decided to feature some of the opinions of people from Amino and Steam. If you want to participate, then just leave me a message. Okay, that's pretty much it. Let's begin! Candace against the universe. Ben 10 versus the universe. The third, and if I'm being completely honest here, hopefully the last Ben 10 film we'll see for a long time. Allow me to explain. After some confusion in intergalactic court, Ben gets mistaken for a criminal whilst trying to save Earth from an upcoming meteor. Ben gets sent to the Null Void, a phantom zone type of prison that homes the galaxy's worst criminals. Now it's up to Ben to get back home whilst also proving to himself, as well as others, that he is worthy of being in possession of the Omnitrix. Meanwhile on Earth, Grandpa Max, Gwen and Ben's old rival Kevin discover that what Ben tried to stop was in fact not a meteor, but Vilgax, Ben's greatest enemy. And since Ben is nowhere to be found, it's up to them and their friends to try and stop him and save the day. As I haven't really watched any of the modern Ben 10 reboots, I wasn't sure what to expect with this film. So I decided to keep an optimistic but cautious attitude, and by the end of it, even though I didn't have high expectations, I was so disappointed and disgusted by this film. I had to put it in last place. Not because of the animation, not because of the humour, but because not a single idea of this film is original. Oh no, there's one thing that's original about this film, and that's the Omnitrix new feature, which allows any of Ben's aliens to survive in space, which are some of the most boring and blandest designs I've ever seen in a series that prides itself in kooky and creative monster designs. Not only are these designs lazy, but manipulative as well, because let me guess, are the toys for this already out? Of course they are. But by God, every single piece of dialogue in this feels like an afterthought. There's no depth, no characterization. I don't know how this show handles itself, but Kevin, who is usually a big part of Ben's stories on whether he's a good guy or not, in here, all it takes to convince him to join them is just a pretty please.
If you'll trust us, we'll trust you. Come with us.
Fine, if this Phil guy can fix my anti-tricks. Okay.
Ugh. If the rest of the show is like this, then I think I made a very good decision in staying as far away from this as possible. Based on the comic book series by creator of Hellboy, Mike Mignola, here comes Fire Breather, a movie I hate so much, I'll try to keep my ranting to a minimum. Allow me to explain. I don't...
Would you look at that? A nerd complaining about a mediocre comic book adaptation? How original.
What the... Oh, blasted imagination. Moving on. Like I said, this movie is based on a series of comics. A series I happened to read a couple of issues of not so long ago. So, I am sorry, but I can't judge this movie fairly. And I really don't want to, because let's just look at this plot. The story is all about Duncan, a half kaiju and half human teenage boy split between the decision of choosing humanity, his mother's side, or the kaiju, his father's side. All while he tries to fit into high school, make friends, and find a date to his prom.
And the
Is.
Does that description sound a little bit by the numbers? Well, if so, it's pretty much the whole movie. While the animation is actually impressive for a TV production at the time, everything else just looks like it was made in a producer's desk. Like, just the right amount of cues and blandness. So hey, maybe we can make our own 3D series in the future like Max Steel or Barbie. You've got the stereotypical bullies, the stereotypical nice hot girl, the supportive mother, the confused handsome protagonist, etc, etc, and even more etc. But okay, just because a movie uses old tropes, that doesn't mean it's bad. The reason why I think it's bad and personally hate it, it's because while all of these cliches are present in the comic books, the portrayal in here is to the utmost surface level. For example, Duncan has his guardian/protector of his, which in the comic books it's hinted that he does care for Duncan and his mother, whilst also serving as a parental figure for the child. But he's also conflicted because, well, Duncan is basically the heir of hell. Oh, I guess some habits never truly die. But in the movie, while yes, I accept it does have different limits, blah blah blah, who needs subtlety when they can just simply announce it?
What? I haven't. Shut it! Let's drop the act, Junior. I ain't no father figure, and you ain't no kid.
And to add insult to injury, while in the comic books everyone, well, looks like a human being, in here everyone looks like they've come straight out of Monster High. I mean, this is supposed to be the same character. Jesus, tap dancing Christ! I don't want to be that guy complaining about comic book appearances, but come on! So yeah, I'll try to be a little bit more impartial with the rest of these movies, but if you want to see a good story with these characters, go read the comics. Want to see this type of concept done right in animation? Go watch Generator Rex. Unless what you're seeing right here really seems to interest you, I'd highly advise finding a better piece of media.
Chakra the Invincible. Feel the power. Feel the power.
Chakra the Invincible comes all the way from Cartoon Network India, and based on the comic book character by Stan Lee comes the story of Raju, a super genius boy with a super advanced suit that allows him to channel and weaponize all chakras in his body, and so he becomes Chakra, defender of Mumbai, and with the help of his friends he will protect the city from supervillains, aliens, and Amazon Prime Video copyright laws.
Watch him for yourself on Amazon Prime Video. Excelsior!
Besides the fact the animation in here looks like a PSA from 2007 about saving energy in the home, I don't really have a lot to say about this one, since it's clear from the get-go that this is aimed at very little kids. And as movies for little kids go, this one's pretty harmless. I mean, there's not much to say besides that you could pretty much fill a bingo for basic superhero stuff for kids. I mean, you've got all your tropes here. The cocky scientist, the bratty boy superhero, the cute sidekicks, and so on. Everything in here has been seen 1,000,000 times. And for the number 1,000,001, it's fine. I mean, it's not like it's trying to be cool or have weird morals. It knows its demographic well, and there's even a good message about diplomacy around the middle. I was originally going to put Fire Breather on top of this one, but then I thought to myself, while Fire Breather is a mediocre adaptation for kids and teens, this one knows its demographic a bit better. So if this show manages to entertain, educate, or who knows, even inspire a kid for the future on what is already a rough part of the world, well, I guess that deserves some merit at the end of the day.
My gym partner is a monkey. Monkey, monkey, monkey. My gym partner is a monkey. Monkey, monkey, monkey. My gym partner is a monkey. Monkey, monkey, monkey. My gym partner is a monkey.
My gym partner is a monkey, the big field trip. Oh boy! What is considered one of the strangest and among some of the weirdest cartoons that have come out of the network, this is a really bizarre choice to give a movie to. Especially considering the reputation, this show has always been really mediocre.
Oh, a mediocre film for a mediocre review. How fitting.
Oh, could you stop that? I'm already insecure as it gets. I don't need your help on that department, thank you very much. Anyway, I don't know. I never thought this show was that bad. Especially compared to the stuff Nickelodeon puts out. But regardless, let's judge on its own ground rather than the show's reputation, shall we? Musical instruments are forbidden in Charles Darwin Middle School, since apparently even the most subtle hint of music will put any animal immediately to sleep. So in order to justify the marching band's existence, the school allows them to play once a year on the, you guessed it, the big field trip. But Adam, the only human boy in the school, doesn't know the effect that music has on animals. So when he plays his piccolo on the bus, he causes everyone to fall asleep, leading the bus to drive off a cliff and into the wilderness. Now stranded, the students and teachers must connect with their inner instincts and find their way back into civilization. First of all, this is not a movie. It's an extended episode. Second of all, this really doesn't need to be an extended episode, since the two parts are so disconjointed that you could very well do some small rewrites and transform them into their very own separate episodes. And even judging these as 2 episodes, I want you all to know I was so bored out of my mind that I was actually considering in turning it off halfway through. I don't know, it's something about the way the jokes and dialogue are presented that creates this really odd sensation that everyone is just waiting for the other to finish their lines so that they can start theirs.
Hey, Jake, I thought you got car sick.
Do and did. I used your barf bag when you weren't looking.
This isn't a barf bag, Jake. It's my lunch.
Really? Let's see what you got. Ooh, barf.
And honestly, that's a huge shame, since there are some really talented voice actors like Tom Kenny doing Jake or Brian Doyle Murray as the coach. Everything is just kind of meh. And I think that's the best way to describe this whole special in one word, is just meh. Since there's no real story or consequences, and even the humour is just random things, plus overly detailed expressions, divided by the seconds between setup and punchline of the last random thing and overly detailed expression. Unless you are a huge fan of this show, which I doubt people like that even exist, I really wouldn't recommend getting near this. In fact, I would take a big field trip away from this entire experience. Apparently the whole reason this movie exists is to conclude a show from the 1980s from the same name, in which Scooby-Doo, Shaggy, Daphne, Scrappy, Flim Flam, Vincent Price, Mr. T, Al Gore, Fidel Castro, and President of the European Commission from 1977 to 1981 Roy Jenkins all go hunting down ghosts. 13 to be exact. But it seems that the group never actually got to entrap the last one, so the show remained unconcluded until now. And for a conclusion made almost 30 years late in what seems to be one of the worst eras for this franchise, well, what can I say about it? The animation is nice. Okay, look, I can't really talk much about this one since I'm not really familiar with the original show, even though I think I could get a pretty solid image on what it was just by looking at the intro. But still, I know for sure this thing doesn't have a lot to do with the show. First of all of the characters that appear on the original one are barely together in here and treated almost like a B-story. Second, unless my memory fails me, there was barely any mention of the other ghosts whatsoever. And if you want to end a show, well, call me crazy, but I guess that's worth at least an appearance here and there. And third, I know for a fact the original show had a lot of supernatural stuff in it. And in here, well, not to give anything major away, but they have to make it fit with other Scooby-Doo films for the sake of continuity. And to be honest, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Why couldn't this thing be set in a separate universe? Wouldn't that be more fun? I don't really have a lot to say on this one besides that I felt bored throughout most of it. But that could very well be just me, since there are a lot of people that seem to enjoy it. For example, Evie says, "To be honest, I haven't seen Scooby-Doo in years, so watching Scooby-Doo and the Curse of the 13th Ghost was a real treat. Even if it wasn't Halloween at all, I recommend it to any fan of Scooby-Doo as it is a great movie. If you have already seen it, then watch it again, especially on Halloween. That is all I have to say. I hope my opinion helps in convincing you to watch this movie." So there you have it. If you like the modern Scooby-Doo, it's kind of a safe bet you'll like this one just fine. But if you're looking to embark on a nostalgia trip or want to see a lot of crazy ghost stuff, I recommend sticking to the original show, as dated as it is. The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, The Wrath of the Spider Queen. Okay, so before I get into this movie, I have to say that I'm not a big fan of the latest seasons of the show, as they went very much towards humour instead of story and characters. My interest sort of died out. Not to say that the show wasn't funny, but not as interesting in my opinion. Anyway, the Spider Queen and her army of spiders are invading Ennsville, all because the Queen thinks Grimm cheated her out of a title of the Grim Reaper all those years ago when the position was made available through a high school contest. So, hell-bent on revenge, the Queen plans to eat Grimm's head. All the meanwhile, Jeff the Spider is planning in marrying the Spider Queen, but not before he gets his dad's approval of the union. And in classic Billy fashion, he wants nothing to do with spiders. Again, this is not a movie. This is an extended episode. And as extended episodes go, it's pretty okay. Nothing bad, but nothing great either. For example, I think exploring Billy's and Jeff's relationship, especially on this context, is actually brilliant. But it gets tossed aside for the whole let's see what really happened in the past stuff. That, to be honest, the way it's handled in here is not interesting, nor funny. And speaking of not interesting, the Spider Queen herself, which is supposed to be the big focus of this, I found her portrayal to be kind of stale. And it certainly doesn't help that, after she's introduced, the rest of the characters are basically hostages for the remainder of the film. Which, let's face it, is just a cheap way to write them out of the story. Oh, and speaking of writing, why is it so hard for this show to keep a consistent timeline? Ugh.
Yeah, like you could do any better.
I know I could, given the right opportunity. Who are you? And most importantly, don't you have something better to do than be a nuisance?
I think it's fun to mess with you.
Lady, I don't know you, but I can fairly say that you are in fact a jerk. Infatuated with the idea of conflict through immature mocking, and to that I say, good day, sir. Lady?
Takes one to know one. After all, who better to argue with?
But yourself.
Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up! But if I had to point out the positives, the one thing I absolutely loved is Jeff being so fed up with Billy that he becomes this pathetic man-child, just ranting his frustrations away. And it's probably the funniest thing in the whole special.
Do you understand what it's like to live here with your wicked laughter going off every 2 minutes?
You said you liked my wicked laughter.
I said I liked your wicked chuckle.
So yes, if you like the show's humour and you're looking for a small little laugh, you'll probably enjoy this one. But if you're looking for something bigger or complex, I guess you'll just have to keep looking for now. Okay, so that's it for now. I'll see you in about a week or so to continue this little journey together. So ta-ta for now, and hopefully we'll be able to conclude this series, right?
Oh, we're just getting started.